Welcome back to the Best Wines Tasting Room. We're going to be quick with this one because these folks are very busy, the people I'm sitting here with today. I'm sitting with the partners, two of the partners in Boërl Kroff, which you don't know the name yet, but let me tell you, this is probably the single most exciting champagne project that I have ever personally been involved with in the wine industry. And I want to introduce you to Marie Van Am, as well as Patrick Sebast, who are two of the minds behind this fantastic project. And thank you for coming.
Thanks.
Actually, this is pretty cool stuff. You guys don't know just how cool yet, but it's very cool. Basically, this is one of the greatest champagnes I've ever tasted. And it was a name that, up until maybe a week or two ago, I had not seen before. So what I'd like to know is, first of all, I want to talk to you, Patrick, about the inspiration for this brand, because I think there's a very interesting story.
Yeah, thank you for welcoming us in any case. Maybe the inspiration could be explained through the reason why we are drinking red wine now, talking about champagne. You know, our small estate is maximum 20 kilometers or 12 miles from North Burgundy. And probably if my estate wouldn't have been into the geographic area of Champagne, I would have probably made a red wine with my grapes. Mm-hmm. We have extraordinary, beautiful Pinot Noir, but we are in Champagne, and I love Champagne, so and I also love red wine. But I decided to produce Champagne instead of a beautiful red wine. So this has something to do also with the sensoric composition of our wine, which is powerful and also very generous as a sunny red wine.
Mm-mm. Marie, talk to me a little bit about the vineyard, because the vineyard for this wine is very unique, something I've never heard of before with regards to...
It's basically put together by 3 plots. We call it one vineyard today because they're side by side, and it's 3 specific small, really tiny vineyards, altogether 0.9 hectare, which is 2.2 acres, something like this. So it's tiny, yeah? Which is also why our wines are so rare, because we have no more land than that, which means that we produce 3,000 magnums a year as a maximum when we do the magnums, or 6,000 bottles when we do normal bottles. So there exists no more than that.
So I see there's 2 wines in front of me. There's a B, and there's a Boërl Kroff. Yeah. Now, are both of these produced every year, or how does that work?
I mean, when we made our first vinification in 1995, and until now only 2 vintages have not been produced because the quality was not there, and other 2 because of hail, who destroyed 100% of our production. But when we started vinifying, the quality was extraordinary in 95, and then came the extra famous 96. Unfortunately, almost sold out today, but 97 was an extraordinary vintage also, but very different from the 2 first vintages. So in order to show the difference, which is not a difference of quality, but a difference of sensoric compositions due to the climate, the weather, the many natural reasons, we decided when the sensoric standards were different from the 2 first vintages, we would vinify in normal bottles. So because our Boërl Kroff cuvée is only vinified in magnums and larger than magnums. So it's Jeroboams and even some crazy 30 liters, the Melchizedek. Voilà.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. So since then it's been like, if it's outstanding, extraordinary vintages, they're vinified in magnums. And if it's, I wouldn't call it less good vintages, but different vintages, we vinify them in normal bottle size and call it our cuvée B. So it's not you call it a second cuvée, it's just when the vintages is different. And we don't feel that it resembles what the 96 or the 95 was, then we put it and we vinify the entire vintage in small bottle, or we call it the small bottle.
And because of the champagne process, you have to make that decision early on.
Yeah.
Early. I had for this reason, in 2002, I had a little regret. Because 2002, I love magnums. You know, magnums are the most beautiful format available in the world, because the wine becomes more magic and whatever. And the evolution of the wine, you know, our wines stay at least 12 years in the cellar before being released. So the magnums, as we say in Champagne, the glass is part of the wine, because we vinify in bottle. which is unique in the world for champagne, with the champagne. So in 2002 I had a small regret because it was an extraordinary vintage and very, very similar to 96. But I took the decision to make small bottles, which is an amazing wine, but more similar to the Boërl Kroff range than the beer range.
Yeah. You know, I want to touch base on something you just mentioned, 12 years aging. And this is a fairly new operation, correct? This is a fairly new champagne house, maybe one of the newest champagne houses. So you started, and for 12 years, there was no wine.
Nothing was released, nothing was discoursed, nothing was sold. No.
We sold our first bottle exactly 13 years after vinifying the first vintage.
And then after 12 years, I want to get this straight. After 12 years of waiting, you get to release some wine, and you release 3,000 bottles.
No.
Or no, not even.
Step by step.
Not all
we,
of them
we,
were
we released some of the 1995, an important quantity of the 95, the 96 also. Probably I will have regrets also in the future to not have kept more 96 available in the future. I had the same problem with the B97. We released too much, and I have unfortunately few of them available in the winery. But the wine is produced to be drank and to be shared. So in that sense, this wine is a little bit different. It's a little bit different. We decided to explore new routes in the Champagne, respecting the tradition but being different in order to create for us first a new sensation. It was based on everything was different. One single variety, one single vineyard, one single size of bottle, only vintage, and only. So it's one for every important criteria.
Yeah.
And it's different.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that nothing like this has ever been done in Champagne before. Is that?
Excuse me?
Is it fair to say that this is the first time something like this has been done in Champagne?
It is fair. It is correct. It is the first time that the only also includes the size of the bottle, because some of our friends, champagne producers, do similar things. But not including the magic of the choice of the size of the bottle.
And everything, I mean, we were discussing some of the details that go into this. But one thing I wanted to bring up real quick that I thought was just fascinating was the whole concept of the cork. The fact that you had a background or still doing the cork business. And the cork was a very important aspect for you.
The cork is indeed a very important aspect because, it is something it's very close to me because my family has been one of the most important operator in the cork industry in the last 3 generations. And also technically because the cork is like when you bring your child to school for first time. You mean you release your wine, and then when you put the cork, you have no more control of the wine. So it's something which is important. And for first time in my life, I have been on the other side of the line. Before I was selling corks to winemakers, and now as a winemaker I buy corks. So I understand sometimes the stress some of my colleagues, winemakers, can feel when they buy corks. I understand that better now. But I don't feel stressed because I produce my own corks. So if I have a problem and I will talk to myself.
Yeah. No, I think it was. We were talking about the cost or something like that, like what the typical champagne cork costs, like.
Production?
Yeah.
Oh, the cost, a very good quality cork of champagne costs around 300 euros per thousand, more or less. Yeah. In the case of ours, we are more, depending on the choices we do, between 5 and 10 euros per cork. Yes. Yeah. Because they are made in a very traditional way. By hand, piece per piece, one per one, and so on and so on. And I had the chance to discover that those corks was really able to get married with the wine for longer than 50 years. So It is very interesting to discover, our wines stay in winery for 12. It's not a rule, but when we consider them ready, we offer them to our clients. But they are very fresh after those, because the way we vinify, they are still very fresh. This is part of the experience with our wines. But the corks will make possible two things. If my clients want to drink my wines immediately, they can do it, and with great pleasure, and they can enjoy it immediately without waiting. But if they want to keep their bottles aging in their cellar and forget them for 2 generations, the wine will be there. So it's also important for me to respect their choices with their bottles.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about the style of the champagne, because there's a reason these bottles are empty. Yeah. Okay. And I think one of the reasons is just the kind of like the joyous nature, the drinkability but complexity of the wine. How much thought, what kind of goes into that when you're dealing? Is it more the vineyard specific, or how you make it, or
both and other things? Of course, the way we vinify together with our partner in enology is obviously important. The grape, the fruit, in how we treat the plants and everything, and then how we age in tanks, in wood, and then in bottles. Everything has an impact. Also, the vintage impact. Every year it will be different. But we were aiming at a very personal sensations. I love champagnes made which gives me some sensations, and I was not able to find that in the market. So I tried together with our partner, Michel Drapier. Why not to name it? Because we owe the success of our brand to Michel Drapier, who made this possible. Mm-hmm. So he reached to produce for us exactly the wines I wanted to drink. Mm-hmm. So powerful wines, which gives you memory of what you are drinking for hours in the mouth and for life sometimes, mm-hmm. And which are strong, real, with great personality wines.
Mm. We tend to call them more wines than champagne. The whole idea is that there's also less bubbles in. So the normal bottle, you have an amazing example of how many bubbles there is in a normal bottle of champagne and how much we have here. Because the idea was here to create a wine with a touch of extra magic because of the bubbles.
Right.
So it is more in that sense. Also why we serve it usually, as you saw on the dinner on Sunday, in large Burgundy glasses. We even decant the magnums. And when I've been traveling around the world and you start decanting champagne, people are looking, what are you doing?
It's very fun.
It's a wine, it's not a champagne. It needs air, it needs to be treated like a wine.
Yeah. No, the wine had this entirely kind of like creamy, haunting, subtle, silky texture to it, while still having the structure of something very important.
And the magnums may be too small, no?
Yeah, and I think everything in 3 liter from here on out. Is that possible?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
But then you're only going to make like 4 bottles. Production's so small.
Believe me, in the last 7 years, when we launched the brand, I've never seen even a tear in the remaining in the Magnum after opening. Never.
Well, you guys, thank you so much for coming today and sharing this amazing new champagne with me. I believe I had a. Yeah. Yes,
you're right, because in a region where wine has been produced for 5 centuries, a 20 years silence experience like ours can be called young.
Yes, very young. So again, thanks so much for coming, and my gosh, I can't wait to. Are we gonna open? Is it gonna open? Maybe not.
No,
we'll see.
No, it's a true moment.
Cheers, you guys. Thank you. Santé.
Santé.